statement about the webcast.
Thanks, Chair. If I could just ask for the recording to be switched on. I see it's started. That's great.
It.
Thank you. Thanks. Welcome everyone to this special meeting of the East Lothian IJB on the 22nd of April 2021, which is being held remotely in accordance with the Scottish Government's recommendations as regards physical distancing during the COVID-19 outbreak. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available as a webcast in order to allow the public access to the democratic process in East Lothian. East Lothian Council and NHS Lothian are the data controllers under the Data Protection Act 2018. Data collected as part of the recording will be retained in accordance with the Council and Health Board's policies on record retention, and the webcast of this meeting will be publicly available for up to 6 months. As we have now officially entered the pre-election period for the 2021 Scottish Parliamentary elections, may I remind all elected members of East Lothian Council of the need to act in accordance with the Council's pre-election guidance and the Code of Recommended Practice on Local Authority Publicity. And I'll now move to the roll call of attendees. When you hear your name, if you could confirm that you're present, thank you. Councillor Shameen Akhtar.
Present.
Councillor Neil Gilbert.
Present.
Councillor Susan Kempson. Sue Kempson.
Fiona, she's on the phone, I see.
Oh, right, okay. But she is present. Fiona O'Donnell.
Present.
Thank you. Fiona Ireland.
Present.
Peter Murray.
Present.
And Richard Williams.
Present.
And David Binney.
Present.
Philip Clonaglin. Lorraine Cowan.
Present.
Thank you. And Richard Fairclough. Richard? Nope. Okay. And Claire Flanagan.
Present.
Ian Gorman.
Present.
Alison MacDonald.
Present.
Marilyn McNeil. Nope. Thomas Miller. Judith Tate.
Present.
John Turville.
Present.
Leslie White. Paul White. Was that you, Paul? Sorry.
Yep, present. Thank you, Fiona.
Thank you. And I can confirm that we've had apologies from Patricia Donald and from Emma Rainish. And lastly, could I ask members if they have any declarations of interest? No. Thank you. I can confirm, Chair, that we're quorate to go ahead with the meeting if you want to proceed with the business now.
Thank you so much, Fiona. As you know, this is a single agenda item meeting. I'm just going to hand over immediately to Claire because she's much more expert in this field than I, and she'll talk you through the paper that we're here to consider today.
Thank you, Chair. So this report provides an update to the board on the confirmation of the formal budget offers from East Lothian Council to the IJB for 2021-22 and from NHS Lothian to the IJB for 21-22. East Lothian Council agreed their budget position at Council Committee on the 2nd of March 2021. The budget offer from East Lothian Council to the IJB should be considered in the context of the Council's overall financial position, the conditions of the government and the conditions of the government settlement. We have been cited on what the offer was likely to contain, and correspondence was received regarding the budget offer from the Council to the IJB on the 16th of March 2021, with a final confirmation following this, and this came through on the 13th of April 2021. And it's this letter that's attached in your pack. The final confirmation of the formal budget offer from East Lothian Council is there in Appendix 1, so that's page 7. You'll see the additional funding from Scottish Government for 2021-22 for health and social care, which was 72.6 million nationally, of which East Lothian's council share was 1.398 million. This has been passed through in full, and this funding is to support the uplift in the living wage, or uplift in the additional funding coming through to support the implementation of the Carers Act and the uprating of free personal care. A further and second tranche of living wage funding has subsequently now also been allocated to IJBs via local authorities, and East Lothian's share of this was £582,000, so a total increase in new funding of 1.98 million, which brings our total budget offer from East Lothian Council to 57.2 million. In Table 1 and Table 2 in the paper, you'll see these positions are summarised. This position is the formal offer from East Lothian Council, and although no changes are expected, we will monitor the national budget position, and details of the most recent correspondence from Scottish Government are also attached for information in your pack at Appendix 4. Following the indicative allocation letter issued to NHS boards on the 28th of January from Scottish Government, NHS Lothian, who's our other partner, has had their financial plan for 21-22 now approved by their NHS board. This was approved on the 7th of April 2021, and therefore following this they have issued a formal budget offer letter on the 7th of April to the IJB. This is shared in your paper at Appendix 2, which is page 11 of your pack. This letter follows correspondence received on the indicative budget offer position from NHS Lothian, which was provided to the IJB on the 4th of March. NHS Lothian has for 21-22 received uplift to its baseline funding of 1.5%, plus further additional funding to support their move towards NRAC parity. So NRAC parity being the National Resource Allocation Formula, which is used to provide health boards with their funding. This uplift in funding equates to 1.4 million for East Lothian IJB, and Table 3 summarises this offer. So the total budget allocation from NHS Lothian is 93.3 million, which covers all of our core hosted and set-aside delegated functions within health. An uplift of the 1.5% has been applied to our baseline, so a further additional funding allocation of 1.4 million, and a small amount of funding allocated via NHS, which impacted on delegated functions and therefore forms part of the IJB's overall budget. So a small amount of 1.19 million has been added into the IJB's budget on top of the national directive. It's worth noting that our general medical services budget, which will be uplifted separately and this is directly funded from Scottish Government. This budget is 12.7 million, and the uplift will be allocated via Scottish Government and via NHS Lothian, and will follow in the next few months through to the IJB's budget. So at this moment in time, this gives the total NHS Lothian budget offer to the IJB of £108.6 million. This offer gives the IJB an overall budget moving into 21-22 of £165 million, and this is highlighted in Table 4. And again, the council offer is both offers are there in the previous tables. This position is the formal offer from both our IJB partners, and we will continue to monitor the national budget position and the further detail around the national announcements, particularly the ones detailed in the letter from Scottish Government on the indicative allocation. So the letter in Appendix 4, where you'll see there's a lot of national initiatives with national funding allocated, and we're just waiting to get further clarity and further detail in terms of what this means for East Lothian. So we'd ask the IJB, similar to in previous years, that the budget offer should be considered in the context of the challenging financial environments both our partners face, and in line with the integration scheme, the board should consider these offers in terms of fairness and adequacy and respond to partners on their position. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Claire. Any questions for Claire on the budget proposal? I've got one, Claire, whilst we wait for any coming in. I see somebody's put a hand up, but I'll just quickly ask my one before I go to, can't quite see who it is. Fiona Ireland. Fiona, I'll come to you in a second. The non-recurring money that's identified for pay, we've lost it now in my living wage. Is that likely to have an effect in subsequent years?
Yes, so that's something that we'll go into that in a bit more further in terms of the development session next, but that will be a risk. So there's discussions happening nationally around that this funding being non-recurring isn't that helpful, and actually it does give us a bit a financial risk moving into future years. Either a financial risk sits with the IJB or a financial risk that sits with the providers. So the discussions are ongoing regarding the living wage funding. I think it's been a positive step forward, given that we have had the second transfer funding and recognition that the original funding allocation wasn't enough to cover our costs. Yeah. But yeah, further work to be done just in terms of making that baseline that funding.
So would it be appropriate, Claire, to note in the minute that we have concerns about it, and we would look to have those questions answered in the subsequent period throughout this financial year?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. I think, Fiona, you were first, and then Richard.
So I know we're going to see details of suggested efficiency savings plans, but I just wondered at 3.10 what the quantum of the pressure is in terms of a percentage of the budget that we've been offered. If you know that, Claire.
Yeah, you're preempting the next session, Fiona. So yeah, it's about we've got a gap of approximately 3 million before any recovery plans, which is about 2% of our overall budget. We do have some plans, some grip and control plans that we'll talk through at the next session, and you'll see that 3 million gradually come down.
It was really just the percentage of the total I was interested in. Thanks.
Yeah, about 2%.
Thanks, Fiona. We've got Richard and then Fiona O'Donnell. Richard.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Fiona, for the paper. Found it really helpful to get my head around it. As you will shortly hear, I'm not very good at financial stuff, so feel free to correct me if I've got this wrong. A couple of things. So I think that both the Council and NHS Lothian have said their offers will not meet the pay uplifts in full. Now, quite correctly, they've committed to the living wage, which we fully support, but they are not giving us the money to actually allow us to pay that living wage. But we don't actually employ the staff. I think I'm right in saying the staff are employed by NHS Lothian and the Council. They've agreed to the uplift in living wage, but are not giving us the budget to pay for that uplift. My second point is, I think I'm right in saying that if we don't agree with this, the next step is to go back and renegotiate. I think that's what the regulations state. So we're not obliged to accept this. So my third point would be simply back to Claire. In your position, do you think this is fair, reasonable and adequate? Because if not, then I think we need to go back and renegotiate. Please correct me if I got any of that wrong. Probably
no,
not.
you're absolutely spot on with both your questions. So if I take the one regarding pay uplift first, I think so if I take NHS Lothian in terms of pay uplift, so the 1.5% uplift that we have received in terms of our baseline funding, the first call on that would probably be to uplift the pay budgets. I think the risk that NHS Lothian has recorded as part of their correspondence is the fact that there's still national negotiations taking place regarding the Agenda for Change pay deal. So the 4%, I'm going to say 4%, I think that's maybe wrong. the percentage, the 4% that's been agreed or is in the process of going through governance regarding the Agenda for Change pay deal, and what we need to work out from, and you'll see it's also referenced in the Scottish Government letter in Appendix 4. It talks about, once we have clarity on this position and then clarity on the funding source, there will be a subsequent further allocation. So we will work with NHS Lothian just in terms of monitoring that position. In terms of East Lothian Council, it's a slightly different position. So at the moment, our budget offer from East Lothian Council does not include any funding for pay uplift to our East Lothian Council staff. So we as an IJB have to fund and manage that locally. And there's more detail on that in the next session. So hopefully that will give you that answers both your questions. In terms of my assessment in terms of the budget offers, I think both offers are in line with the national guidance that's came out. Both partners have operated within that national guidance. Are they adequate? Potentially not. But given both partners are working with really tight financial environments, I think that's just part and parcel of the IJB having both partners in public sector that have really tight financial constraints against them. I think, are they fair? I think both offers are fair now. I think they've applied with the policy. We can see that they've demonstrated where they've put additional investment in. And I think that therefore on that basis, given that they are fair proposals to an IJB, I would be recommending we accept these offers.
Thank you for that. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question, Mr. Richard. Fiona O'Donnell.
Thank you. I wonder if I can first of all just sort of pick up from Richard's question, and just to clarify a bit of this clear. So in terms of, the vast majority of council funding comes from Scottish Government, from central government, through the regional support grant, and then there are additional funds which are made available to IJB, including in relation to funding pay increase. So it's just to check, first of all, that any money which has been received from Scottish Government to cover the pay uplift, that has been passed to the IJB. So that's the first question. The second is in terms of risk as well, because local government trade unions are also, maybe balloting their members on strike action. My understanding is at COSLA that no pay deal has been agreed so far. So I wondered what risk was being factored in relation to that. I did have a third question, which was, my original question that was in my head was in relation to the integrated, the impact assessment in terms of equality and impact on sections of the population. I noticed that there is no comment there. Is that because it would be at the stage where we decided how we were going to spend the budget, that's the point at which an integrated impact assessment would be carried out? Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. So if I take each of your points, so in terms of the offer that we've had from East Lothian Council, it's a flat cash offer. So it's our budget for our last year's budget, just rolled forward on a flat cash basis. No addition, no extra pay uplift has been built into that flat cash offer. In terms of what is fed through from East Lothian Council is all the national money that's fed through the Scottish Government budget announcement. So our share of the 72.6 million, and then the further element that's come in for the living wage angle. All the new money comes with cost commitments. The living wage is there to cover the increase in living wage. So there's nothing comes through with kind of extra scope or free rein in terms of where we would want to direct that. It all comes pretty much earmarked for very specific purposes. So I'm hoping that's answered that question. And in terms of the integrated impact assessment, yes, you're right. We've not went into that in this paper. I think what we do once we've agreed our budget offer position and we know where we stand for 21-22. Then it goes on to then allocating the financial resource to each of our directions. And that would be then where you would get a bit more detail around integrated impact assessment.
And the other one in the middle, Claire, was just in terms of what the risk was in terms of the local government pay settlement not being agreed yet. Thank you. Yeah, so that again, we'll monitor that in the same way that we would monitor the NHS pay deal. I think I've not yet seen any correspondence around any additional funding in terms of that local authority pay deal. But again, we would monitor that situation both with Partners East Lothian Council and also through our national networks. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. And thank you, Chair. Thank you, Peter.
I think it's really challenging for well, certainly for Claire and for Alison, but for us as relatively lay people to try to get to grips with all the machinations that seem to emerge and try to forecast what might come and what might not come. So, you know, although we've got a degree of fog in this proposal, I'm assured by the work that Alison and the work that Claire have done that have taken us to a position where they are recommending we agree this. So, whilst I don't dispute for a second that the next session will no doubt invite some real debate around the potential impact of some of the things we've been talking about, the unknown elements that will affect how much money we've got to spend. I am reasonably assured that what we're being invited to accept has been through a relatively thorough process by both Alison and Claire. But Alison, you got to come in.
I just wanted to kind of highlight something that Claire mentioned. I think there's a great amount of work goes on nationally around this, both through chief officers, chief finance officer networks and Health and Social Care Scotland. So what we are recommending, or Claire's recommending today on our behalf, is in line with what's happening across the country. So we're not out with the challenges that there will be nationally moving forward, but as far as uplifts for pay uplifts, etc., we will be watching the national picture and engaged in that discussion quite closely.
Richard, you've still got your hand up. Are you going to come back in? No. Any other questions for Claire on this paper? No, I think the ones that have been asked are really helpful questions because they will allow us to capture in the minute the concerns that have been raised about some of the uncertainties. So thank you for the questions that were posed by those that asked the questions. In the absence of any others, I'm just going to go to the recommendations. And as you'll see at 2.1, you've been asked to agree and accept the final budget offer from East Lothian Council for 21-22 and agree and accept the final budget from Managers Lothian for the same period. Are we accepting those recommendations?
Chair, we have to do a roll call vote.
Sorry.
We have to do a roll call vote.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. Thank you.
So yes, the chair's outlined the recommendations, so I'll just come to each voting member individually, and if you could indicate whether you want to agree or disagree or abstain. First of all, Peter Murray.
Agree.
Shemeen Akhtar.
Agree.
Neil Gilbert.
Agree.
Sue Kempson.
Agree.
Fiona O'Donnell.
Agree.
Fiona Ireland.
Agree.
And Richard Williams.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. I can confirm, Chair, that the recommendations have been approved unanimously.
Thank you, Fiona. I think at this point we're going to stop the recording as the meeting is now concluded, and I think we have to stay online. Is that correct, Alison? Stay on this call.